and a warm welcome to all our listeners on Auroville Radio. This is Cypria, and I'm so happy you have joined us today as we explore the beautiful and sacred journey of birthing, parenting, and welcoming new souls into our world. Today, it's my joy to introduce Monique Gauthier, a dedicated midwife, educator, counselor, and public speaker with over 35 years of experience. Her wisdom on mindfulness, wellness, spiritual parenting, natural birth, and the vision of a brighter future has inspired audiences around the world. As an integral part of the Morningstar team here in Auroville, Monique contributes to their mission of offering respectful, compassionate midwifery care. Monique believes in the sacredness of birth, a transformative journey that connects parents to the soul of their child and empowers them to embrace the process with joy and strength. Her work nurtures families at every stage, offering love and wisdom through pregnancy, birth, and the postpartum phase. Let's now open our hearts to Monique as she shares her wisdom with us today and every week. Over to you, Monique.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for such an introduction. This is my first podcast here with you all today. And I kind of wanted to outline some of the things that I found very important when we're looking at parents coming into birthing their first child or children and wanting it to be an optimal situation, a situation where the child is being born into love and into peace and comes into the family in a way that's very respectful and full of a trajectory towards peace, towards a child that comes into this world to bring more love and peace into this world, to bring more joy. And how do we foster that from preconception, from conception to pregnancy, and then the birthing process, and then postpartum? How do we raise this child in those first months and years so that it has its best opportunity to bring its soulful self forward? So these are the things that I'd like to address in this podcast. And it's from my heart to yours that I am speaking, so I'll be pretty informal, and at the same time, I'd like to bring some thinking about the context of birth and parenting here in India and around the world. So I can give you a context right now about where I am. Um, so my name is Monique Gauthier, and I live in Auroville, which has over 3,000 people from over 60 different countries. And the objective is to learn how to be of human unity, how to be unified, how to be oneness together. And this community's been here for over 55 years, maybe, and um, it's it's flourishing and it has its struggles, and it's basically a good look at humanity trying to do its best. And the way many of us see it, all over the planet, our consciousness level is pretty much still just getting started. I would say maybe we're in kindergarten. Maybe we're just learning how to be loving beings. We can see evidence of that from the spectrum, starting at our wars on the planet and moving into all the way through the people that are trying to be of service to others. And so that spectrum, I'm hoping and I'm seeing that eventually we'll move away from warring, and we'll learn and gain skills so that we can come from our higher, more peaceful selves in finding strategies and solving problems collectively. And I, to put it in any context temporally, right now on the planet, it does seem like a lot of dire situations for many of us, and things look very confusing and upsetting and hurtful. You look at climate change or politics or monies or inequalities or violence. Just look at the whole thing. And it really looks like humanity's not doing that great. But from a midwife's perspective, these particular days look like right at the heat of labor in birthing the new. So, how I would see that is we're in a transitional time. We're transitioning um, from the place of getting this baby from pregnancy into the world, and the baby is a higher consciousness. And that's what Auroville is about. It's about right now seeing us as transitional people. We're transitioning into a higher way of being together, thinking, feeling, sensing each other as this unified expression. So we're right in the thick of it. And so because of that, a lot of things can get coughed up. A lot of things can be disturbed and destroyed and destructed, so let's say, so that we can construct the new. And this might, all the things that look like they're huge mistakes and terriblenesses, they might be the things that we are learning from, that we are learning to deepen into our compassion. We are learning to deepen into who we want to be in this world, really. So sometimes the darkness really shows us what the light is about and helps us clarify our intention around bringing that forward and actually starting to find the ways that we'll be doing that. Anyway, so that's for me, the context of this conversation that we'll be having here on this podcast is we're in these terrible, beautiful times, and yet we are birthing the new. And at the same time, we are bringing souls to this planet during these times, times of big change. And so, what does that mean, and how do we do that best? And so, that's what I'd like us to look at. And I would let me see, where would I like to start? I'd like to start maybe telling you a little bit more about myself as a midwife. So I'm now 60, and I started this in my early 20s, and I was going to births and participating in childbirth education as a young woman, and um, very inspired, very on fire about the beauty of birth, very much in love. I guess some people, we even had a term for people like me, and they were kind of like birth addicts. Just couldn't get enough of being with women and families during this time of giving birth. And so, from that utter delight and passion for the miracle of life, for the miracle of bringing beings here, um, I've evolved my looking at the question as to how do we do this best and what's really happening here and how do we transform so that we can make even more beauty happen here. And so I started my learning in the United States. And basically, for many years, I did home births. And a home birth in the United States serves maybe a population of 1 to 2% of all births. And that the women who are coming for those services from the midwife for their births, they're paying a good amount of money so that they can have that kind of devoted practitioner that will follow them for 9 months and then another month and a half after the baby is born. And so they're having what's called continuity of care. So they get to know me and I get to know them very deeply. We have very long prenatals, like an hour and a half, and I get to know their family and their partners, and the partner's always there. And it's a huge conversation and education about, well, what is giving birth to the best of our abilities and the highest dreams that we can hold. And so that unfolding is, I had a lot of passion, still do, um, for families really digging into their pregnancy and birth as a rite of passage that is spiritual, that is deep, that is psychologically revealing. And so I spent years really studying the matter with these families, and I'm so very grateful. It's a very intimate thing to attend a birth in a person's home, spend a lot of time in their kitchens and in their bathrooms and their bedrooms, and really getting to know humans very deeply. So I feel extremely privileged for that education. And then after about 25 years or so of that, I ended up doing some midwifery up in Canada, in Ontario, Canada, and went through a process there to learn how to do hospital births and understand their protocols and really understand the structures and systems of institutionalized birth, which was something that I didn't have very high regard for at the beginning of my career. but it balanced out over time, and I'm able to hold all forms of birth, and also including unassisted birth, all the choices that women can make around their births with a reverence, with a celebration, and just I actually rely on a kind of a Buddhist thought around the forms of birth, and this thought is called emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. So what that means to me is that um, the form of a birth, be it in a hospital or in somebody's bedroom, or they are doing it alone in their shower, or whatever the form, however the baby comes out, by cesarean, surrounded by, their husband and good providers, whatever the form of the baby coming in, it doesn't have an absolute meaning. Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. So it's not, the big story is not that. It's not how the baby is born, although I put a lot of love and passion into that. It's not the end of the story. The end of the story is love. And so it's the loving that the family is experiencing, the partners, the husband and wife, or the birth partner, all the love that they experience. It's the love of this baby coming in. It's the love of the process. It's the love of each other. And so we can use all these forms, these hospital rooms, these showers, these beds, out in nature, in a hot tub, wherever. We can use all these forms, but really what's going on, the huge text of it all is really the experience of expanding our capacity to experience love and to actually be the embodiment of that. And that's what we really are in truth, according to so many great mystical teachings. Who we are is basically the consciousness of love. And so we use all these forms to try to experience that, and so that we can teach ourselves that that is what we are. So there's an expression from a book called A Course in Miracles that says, teach only love, for that is what you are. And so I see birthing and parenting and children raising as this teaching, as this learning for this consciousness of love that's coming to the world. And that is getting deeper and deeper into our cellular levels. I'm here in Auroville, and we're basing a lot of our understandings on the teachings of Mother Mira Alfalsa and Sri Aurobindo, and their tact on the embodiment of spirit was really that it could go right deep into the cells of our beings, that they too could even be awake. And so I see birth, which is a physical process, as really an opportunity to connect to these cells, to connect to the cells of the baby, um, to hold an awareness of epigenetics. So the word epigenetics means above uh, genetics. It means the environment of which the gene is bathed in is actually what is affecting the expression. So this is based on teachings from people like Bruce Lipton, who's looking at um, the cells of our being affected by the consciousness, the environment that the cells are bathed in. So one of the concerns I have for pregnant families is that the mother is treated in a way by her partner, and also that she treats herself in a way that creates this loving response all through her system, into her cells, into the baby. And we do have the epigenetics studies that say that how she's being uh, psychologically held affects the psychological well-being of the baby, from all sorts of mental disorders that come from time in utero to the relaxation of the child's being, to its health over dozens of years. We can even see like one epigenetic study was during the Second World War. They saw that in Holland, uh, the children of mothers who didn't have enough to eat and were under stress had a much greater preponderance for diabetes 40 years later. And so we have lots of research on these things now, showing that the care for these cells that turn into fetuses, that turn into babies and whole humans, the consciousness that we put into it is actually going to affect the outcome. And that's where you want to invest your time, your money, and your energy, I think, is in the support of families, if we really want a better world. So that's kind of my introduction to how I see things and who I am. I could add that now I'm in Auroville, where we have a wonderful birthing team of midwives and doulas and lactation consultants and um, birth friendly people that are surrounding us. Um, and we are now about to start building our birth center. And we have, for the last 6 years or more, we've been trying to get this center built, and we finally have our permission and our piece of land. And we hope to start digging this year. And that will be really wonderful for Oroville to have a place where we can continue our tradition of sacred birthing. There's been an interruption in it in the last year or two. We haven't been able to do home births. We are still helping women birth in the hospital. The reason we've been having to stop home birth is because the state of Tamil Nadu, the officials there would like to have 100% births be in institutions. So that's why we're going to build a birth center. And so for most of the time in Auroville, 50 some years, we've been able to have very quiet, lovely births at home. But that's no longer possible. But we hope to be able to recreate that feeling of home in our upcoming birth and family center. It's the Morningstar Birth and Family Center, where Paula Murthy, my head midwife, is leading this up with a glorious team of people that really care about how souls are being greeted in this world. So there's a bit of an introduction there, and I'm wanting to move on to talking about the context of India birth. So I've had an experience of being in the West and looking at, well, what does home birth look like there, or clinical or hospital or birth center births. And so I can kind of do compare and contrast to what's available here in India and see what is still needing to be evolving here. India is having maybe 1.5 million babies be born here in hospitals every month. And so the systems are pretty strained as far as having enough care providers to really fulfill what the West is more able to fulfill around holding a certain amount of respectful birthing. And in the West, we have when we're really reaching high as far as how birth shall be held, we have what's called mother-friendly hospitals and baby-friendly hospitals. And I'll kind of give you a list of some of the things that are almost taken for granted now in the West, but still need to be implemented here in India. And there are really good reasons why this is not happening in India. It's a lack of resources, and it's a lack of building structures that can accommodate very careful birthing. And it's just kind of the overwhelm of the system. But in my fantasy, in the next 20 years, I'm hoping we'll see more midwifery. The government here is hoping to have more midwives. And also, the World Health Organization is encouraging all the countries to have more midwives, because midwives really understand women's full journey, the 9 months and the and also the breastfeeding and the postpartum, and they have the full picture, so they can really provide this kind of continuity of care and awareness that hospital structures don't have the capacity for just on their own. And so let me just kind of list out what a mother-friendly hospital might have. It would have, you would be allowed to go to your birth with your birthing companion of choice. So that could be your mate, your husband, your mother. You could have them right by yourself, helping your mind to be at ease when your body is in its greatest pain, and when you are most vulnerable. And that, just to be able to have somebody who loves you near you, just actually even a doula. A doula will reduce. A doula is a trained birth attendant. If you could hire one or have a professional beside you that has had lots of experience of birth, just her presence will reduce the cesarean rate down to 50% of what it would have been. And so, care for, intimate, loving care for the woman and her psychology and her body, and just looking out for her while in labor, while in a hospital, that will do a whole lot of good. But unfortunately, here in India, a lot of women are giving birth in huge rooms like a gymnasium, and are right next to other women birthing. And so they don't have privacy. They don't even have curtains around them. And so they're all, and this is not in every hospital, but this is generally what's happening in public hospitals where a great majority of women are birthing, where they don't have that privacy and they can't really have somebody by their sides because it would take up too much room in that space of, where other women are also laboring. And so, birth companion number one is what we would say. Um, and so, if I were to wish anything on India's birthing is to allow women to be surrounded by that love. And if there was any way to do that, like provide curtains or have more birthing suites or separate rooms, that would be a change that I would hope on for women of India. The next thing that would be in a place of mother-friendly hospital, let's say, we would call it freedom of movement during labor. So that means that a woman could move any way she wants. Right now, because these rooms are constricted, or they don't have companions to help them, or it's not being suggested, or there's a variety of reasons why women aren't being allowed to walk and move and squat and get on hands and knees and move their hips. So the movement of the rotation of the hips, the dancing, the jumping, the walking, all this kind of movement actually helps baby to move downwards, down through the pelvis and out the vagina. And right now, what we have is in India is women are often on their backs on what I think are pretty uncomfortable beds, and they're not being encouraged to really use full range of movement, and that can make labor quite painful. The pelvis becomes more constricted when it's on its back, and so pushing a baby out or allowing a baby downwards and out while in the supine position, the laying on the back, is harder for women, and it hurts more. And so a mother-friendly hospital would allow for space, that the woman would have space to deliver in so that she could move. And then when it would come time to birth the baby, there would be a freedom of choice around birth position. So in these hospitals, it's not encouraged to deliver in a squatting position, which is the most natural way to deliver a baby, to be kind of, you know, the way that you would poop is in a squatting position here in India. That is physiologically makes more sense and feels better in that delivery. And in the West, we have really lovely birth stools where people can kind of sit like on a toilet seat and kind of shape. And babies can kind of fall down towards with the use of gravity much easier. So it makes delivery so much easier rather than being on the back or in a semi-seated way, the way that they're doing it now. So a choice of birth position. One of the also a very easy position is to be on hands and knees, so that the woman is the baby is being delivered from behind while she's on hands and knees. It's much easier on the back. A lot of babies are positioned in a way where it can be hard on the back, especially if they're in posterior position. So being allowed to be on hands and knees to deliver, is preferable, and it's honoring of her physiology. And so I wish upon India that not only can women move, but they can be on hands and knees, and they can have their partners be beside them. That would be my dream. And then also that they're allowed to eat and drink at their leisure. The uterus is a huge muscle, and it needs some calories, some energy, and many times there are protocols in the hospital that don't allow for women to drink and eat at, as they desire. And so a mother-friendly hospital would allow for that. And as far as some hospitals will put electric fetal monitoring on for the duration of the labor. So that's putting kind of these electrode strips on the belly so they can hear the baby's heart rate along with the contractions and see how it's doing. But it's not being done. Uh, it's done for hours versus just kind of doing a 20-minute strip of information. And so she's then pegged more so to the bed, and that is also painful. And many times these electric, the ones that I've seen here, that I've been around, the monitors, are not necessarily the most effective way to really find out how baby is doing, because the monitors aren't as reliable as we think they are. And they can be subject to interpretation. 10 different doctors can read them 10 different ways. And so it would be used, those monitors would be used, in moderation. They would be used when really needed. And that's how I would put it, I guess. Another thing about mother-friendly hospital is that there's if you were to ask the care provider, the doctor, what's the cesarean rate here in this hospital? What's the rate of induction, which means inducing, making labor come chemically versus waiting for a mother's natural time when her own body starts labor, where her own hormones will be relied upon for the delivery of this baby. And induction is an interference of that. And here in India, they do a lot of really early inductions. They do them maybe even 3 weeks before the due date, and that's quite early in my book. And certainly the cervix and the body is not that receptive to labor at that time, and so that would be a cause for higher cesarean rates. Anyway, so again, a mother-friendly hospital would be able to reveal, well, what is the C-section rate here? What's the induction rate? And then also, what's the episiotomy rate? Many of the hospitals have over 90% episiotomy. And episiotomy is a cut that is made to usually to the side of the vagina down towards the rectum, just as the head is crowning. And this used to be what medicine did back in the West to everyone. And since then, there have been plenty of research saying that it's invalid. It doesn't really do. Um, it does more harm than good, and especially if it's done without the mother's consent, which is what happens here a lot. And so it would be great if women really understood that when they're going to a hospital, what the rate uh, of episiotomy, inductions, C-sections, so they could get a picture of what they're stepping into. And if they understood that, one of the things that we would advise is to delay the minute that you walk into the hospital. So there's been lots of research that say that when a woman goes into the hospital after active labor, after 4 or 5 centimeters of dilation, when they've done most of their laboring in the night at home in their bed, and then they come in the next day and they're actively engaged, and they maybe only have 6 more hours, 8 more hours to go, or 3, 4 more hours to go, then they're much less likely to have interventions and less likely to have cesareans and all the rest. Um, so, being at home with your beloveds is a far better way to go. And then going to the hospital when you really feel like, okay, the baby really is coming and I should get there. Um, that would be a nice, strong choice for independent laboring. And also, we now have lots of tools that really help labor, like birthing balls and birthing tubs. And India only has maybe 5 birth centers where there are birth tubs, and maybe some hospitals might have them, but very, very few compared to the numbers of babies that are being born every month. And but a birth tub is waterbirth is actually what we call we call it the midwife's epidural. It's actually for my own births. I had 2 daughters born in a hot tub, and it took the sensation down from a 10 down to like a 3, so like a menstrual cramp, the sensation of laboring. And so birthing in the birth tub is really a wonderful tool, and it would be great if that was available to more women, along with just the simple birth ball. Sitting on a birthing ball, which is a physio ball, a rubber ball, you can move your hips side to side and front, and you can help that baby descend, and it's comfortable on the pelvis. And you can actually lean over in the bed while you're sitting on the birthing ball and moving, and you can actually fall asleep in between contractions, which is really lovely. Then it helps guard the woman's energy. So I would have every hospital here have birth balls. So that's basically kind of talking about um, a mother-friendly hospital. And then I can just this last little part, tell you a little part about baby-friendly hospitals, which is the best food for a baby is breast milk. And we have lots of research talking about how that breast milk helps the development of babies' brains and their connection to their mother, and just a long list of benefits to their jaw, to their muscle structure, um, to their immune system. The list goes on and on. And so, really caring for our babies is to help women be able to learn how to breastfeed. Um, and usually, we wouldn't have to have birth consultants so much because we used to live tribally, and we could watch how other mothers breastfeed, and it would be very open. And, it'd be kind of, the mirror neurons would replicate what they saw in their mothers and grandmothers and cousins, and would know how to breastfeed. But in our culture now, there's plenty of issues around babies not knowing quite how to latch in a way that would help with letdown of the milk, or a long list of problems that can happen in breastfeeding. So a baby-friendly hospital would help mothers with breastfeeding by making sure that they had a very strong breastfeeding policy that was known by everybody in the staff, that they had lots of lactation support that came by, soon, right after the baby was born, and that, or a few hours, to just keep helping the mother-baby team learn how to be good at that. And they wouldn't be offering artificial milk or artificial nipples and pacifiers, which get in the way of the baby developing its breastfeeding skills. The baby would not be taken away from mother in that first 24 hours, and for the rest of the time, the baby would go straightly from the womb right onto the mother's body. And if there's no resuscitation needs, that's where the baby could even be resuscitated on, just rubbed up and encouraged to breathe. Most babies start up very quickly like that on the mother, doesn't need to be taken away from the mother. And that first hour, we call it the golden hour, where the baby is on the mother, warmed by her body, listening to her heartbeat and her breath, and is learning to breastfeed. That hour, to hold that very, very precious, and to allow even for the baby to crawl up. Babies have the ability to crawl up towards the nipple of the mom. Be patient in that capacity. So there's so much learning and training that could go on for um, the people that are tending to the mother after the baby is born. And then also, it would be great if that the encouragement that it would be exclusive breastfeeding, that and breast milk would be provided for the baby, that was really the objective of the hospital. And this kind of postpartum care would continue, where we would be, once the mother returns home, that she would still have access to um, lactation consultants and help with that, because sometimes it takes a week or two for a baby to really become a great breastfeeder. And sometimes there's a lot of things that could be really helpful. And if you don't get that kind of support, many women kind of give up on breastfeeding, when really, if they had somebody who was skilled by their side, it could remedy that. And it makes a huge difference in the baby's well-being and the mother's well-being to have that support. Anyway, so that's just a few things on the ground here as far as what I'm dreaming into for the future of this country and India, and then also just outlining some of the things that we'd be looking at. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention one of the things that we work on here is trying to make sure that we don't cut the baby's cord too fast. We want to wait till the placenta stops pulsating the blood into the baby's body so that the baby has that last 1/3 of its own blood is returned to it and has a good start. Many hospitals here are cutting the cord way too soon and depriving the baby of their own blood, which would make them hardier. Anyways, so that list of baby-friendly things that we can do, that is part of a big picture that I have in my heart about how do we care for these souls coming into the world. So we have these precious beings coming into this planet that's in a big time of transition and needing a start that tells them that this is a friendly world, that there is love around them, that there is deep care for their being, that they are safe, that they are bathed in a consciousness that is more evolved. And so, if we could start doing everything on the ground to prove that to this new soul, it can grow into a stronger individual who can really make the contributions that I'm sure they came here to make. So that's the beginning of this podcast, I guess, is looking at who I am in the matter, what we know that is helpful for bringing souls into the world. And for future podcasts, I want to look at all sorts of things like what is conscious conception, greeting the souls when they're here, and looking at specific things that people can do in their birthing that will really help them, staying connected to baby in utero and forming those bonds during pregnancy and also those first few months, talking about bonding and so forth. So, so thank you very much for listening, and I welcome any feedback and any questions, and I wish you well. I wish our planet keep leaning into the beautiful world that we know we are capable of, and that we keep directing ourselves towards this expansion of our love. Have a great day today.